evening. Hi, welcome to the Royal Room. My name is Paul Taub. This program is called Alternate Realities. That first piece was entitled Barong 1, composed by a former teacher of mine named Barbara Benaroya in 1974. Barbara was a scholar and ethnomusicologist and performer of Indonesian gamelan music, among other things. And Barong 1 is, the Barong is the name of a pentatonic Javanese mode from Indonesian gamelan music. Barbara was one of my professors at Rutgers University. My program has 9 pieces, all written, with the exception of one, in the last quarter of the 20th century, by composers born in the 20th century, all of whom lived at least part of the way into the 21st century. And before I go to the next piece, I'd like to explain or remind you that this is a benefit for Common Power. All of my tips will go to help further the goals of Common Power, which I'm volunteering with in this election season. We mobilize volunteers for voters around the country while investing in the next generation of leaders and building lasting community, because we believe the most common power we should all have, is the power of our vote. So we're working in about 20 states, supporting organizations on the ground in those states in pursuit of some electoral change for the better this year, and we have plans beyond Election Day and this election season. Visit commonpowernow.org or cpnow.org for more information. So I'll go from Barbara Benaroya's piece to a piece by, coincidentally, another Rutgers University composer, one who I didn't know when I was in school there. His name was Noel DaCosta. DaCosta was born to Jamaican parents while they were on a Salvation Army mission. They were missionaries in Nigeria. So he was born in Nigeria. When he was a young child, moved back to Jamaica and emigrated to the United States, to New York in the probably late, mid-1930s. He was born in 1929. So by the end of the 30s, he was a New Yorker. He became a composer, a violinist, and a composition professor at Rutgers. This piece is called Blue Tune Verses, excuse me, and you might listen to it as if it were three poems, interconnected poems, with a prelude and a postlude. Blue Tune, Blue Tune Verses by Noel da Costa, composed in 1999. So moving on to something completely different. The next piece was written by the Canadian composer and flutist who I consider to be my mentor and teacher, Robert Aitken, written in 1977 and dedicated to Toru Takemitsu, who is a good friend of Bob's. And the piece is called Plain Song, and it's kind of a cross between writing for the flute in all sorts of unusual ways, combined with a sense of the aesthetic and the style and the sound of medieval plainsong or chant from the cathedrals of Europe in the late Middle Ages.
Robert Aitken's Plain Song. Next on the program is an unpublished, it's actually the third unpublished piece on the program by Lou Harrison, one of the great 20th century composers, American composers, born in 1917, died in 2003. And he wrote this air in G minor in 1947. I got to meet Lou and work with him a couple of times when he was in residence at Cornish in the 1980s and 90s. And he was truly an extraordinary musician, an extraordinary man. But this piece I didn't know until Jared Powell, whose piece I'll play after this, introduced me to it about 5 years ago. One of the things I like about it, it has an optional drone, which will be played in a recording of a electric violin with the low string on the violin tuned down to a D, D in the bass clef, and mixed into the sound thanks to Brad here at the Royal Room. But the drone is not, the piece is in G minor, but the drone is a D, which gives a really nice ambiguity to the tonality of the piece. So Lou Harrison's Air in G minor.
Lou Harrison's Air in G minor. Say another word about Common Power and invite you again to tip generously, as all my tips will be going to Common Power to further its goals. Common Power to date in this election season, since April, as of Friday, has reached out to 917,000 voters in 20 states around the country, from campaigns from senator and president down to state Supreme Court judges and local legislative contests as well, and primarily in the key states, the key swing states. And there's lots to do right now for the next couple of weeks, and there'll be more to do in the future as we work together as a community, working with organizations on the ground around the country toward voter enfranchisement, voter rights, voter registration, and voter empowerment and information. So, this is my alto flute. This piece of Jared Powell's is called The Moon and Sun Are Eternal Travelers. Jared is from Billings originally, but now in Seattle for a long time. He was my colleague at Cornish for many, many years. I commissioned this piece from him in 1999. It takes its title from Matsuo Basho, the greatest of Japan's haiku poets. And the poem inspiring this piece is, "The moon and the sun are eternal travelers. Even the years wander on. A lifetime adrift in a boat, or in old age leading a tired horse into the years. Every day is a journey, and the journey itself is home." The Moon and Sun Are Eternal Travelers by Jared Powell. Just checking my notes, make sure I play the right next piece that's on my set list here. So next is, I think he's the only European composer on this program. He's a Latvian composer named Pēteris Vasks, V-A-S-K-S, born in Latvia in 1946 and still very, very active and a wonderful composer. I've met him 3 times, including just about a year and a half ago, when, along with some colleagues, we brought Vasks to Seattle for the second time and helped produce a concert of his music at the Nordic Heritage Museum. But I first met him in 1989 in Seattle at the Goodwill Arts Festival, or after the Goodwill Arts Festival, where I had given what was probably the US premiere of this piece called Landscape with Birds, which was written in 1980. And Vasks, for that era especially, was a very experimental Soviet composer. Not a flute player, but he sure learned how to write for the flute. He loves string quartets, violin concertos, and the flute, many pieces for the flute, with a lot of what we call extended techniques, unusual sounds. But what's behind this music is a very deep-rooted philosophy and appreciation of nature, of conservation, of freedom. This piece is Landscape with Birds, and one of the things that Vasks talks about liking about birds is that they can travel from country to country without a passport. Pēteris Vasks Landscape with Birds. So I'll get this ready. Now I'm going to play two pieces that I also commissioned along with the Jared Powell for the same project 21 years ago in 1999 by Seattle composer and a Seattle composer of the time. I'll introduce them one at a time. I'm playing, the first piece is optional instrumentation, second piece for bass flute, and I'll play both of them on the bass flute. It's more than twice as big as the flute, but it's one octave lower exactly. So the first piece is the piece that I named this Concert Realities. It was written by Stuart Dempster, and the score consists of boxes and ovals with very short phrases, 2 or 3 words in them, like silent sound, vibrational essence, continuous resonances. It looks like there's about 15 basically instructions, and the piece was inspired for Stuart from a book called Being and Vibration by an author named Joseph Rael. And the book concerns silence and sound and also the flute a bit. And the instructions are to choose as many of these instruction boxes or ovals as a source of inspiration. But you can go from one to the other, but they have to be ones that are connected by lines. It's a little bit like a maze with boxes and circles connected by lines to some of the other ones, but not all of them. So Alternate Realities, played on the bass flute, written by Stuart Dempster in 1999. Stuart Dempster, thank you. Alternate realities in a somewhat subdued version. So the final piece, or the next to last piece on the program, let me find it in here, also dates back to 1999, and it was written by a composer who was a colleague at the time at Cornish named Bun Ching Lam. Ching was born in Macau, lived in the United States since the, I think it must be the late 70s, early 80s, and now splits her time between New York State, Paris, and southern France. I commissioned this piece, as I said, in 1999, and Ching writes that it was inspired by a visit to the Mayan temple, the mecca of the Fukushu school of shakuhachi players. I have no intention, she writes, of writing traditional Japanese or shakuhachi music, but would like to evoke the meditative quality of these compositions. The name of the piece is Bittersweet Music 3, and it was written precisely for the bass flute, especially for this bass flute, which was new to me at the time, and it was a great experience getting to know the instrument through the several pieces that I commissioned for it. Bittersweet Music 3 by Bunching Lam. Before I conclude the program with one more piece, I'd like to say one more word about the beneficiary of your tips. I'm donating all my tips. This is for people who missed my introduction at the beginning of the concert. I'm donating all my tips to Common Power, a Seattle-based organization working very hard in this election season and in advance of the season, preparing for it, and we've got our work cut out for us when we after the election is over. We mobilize volunteers for voters around the country while investing in the next generation of leaders and building lasting community. Basically, that means that we have a number of young and very inspiring leaders within this organization, and we work with other organizations around the country in 20 states for this election, on-the-ground organizations, and we volunteer for them, basically, to help with their agenda of getting candidates elected, referendums passed, especially around issues having to do with voting registration, voter suppression, voter enfranchisement, disenfranchisement, get out the vote, voter registration, and so forth. Because we believe that the most common power we should all have is the power of our vote. As of Friday, we had reached out to 917,000 voters in 20 states. By now we've probably surpassed 1 million with phone calls, texts, letters, and postcards. We would have been on the ground knocking on doors this election season, but we had to flex and are doing everything remotely. At least 600 volunteers, mostly in Seattle. So thank you for your donations, and check out commonpowernow.org, I think cpnow.org on the internet. You can learn more about the organization. So to conclude my program, I'll play a piece by an American composer named Catherine Hoover. Catherine was born in West Virginia in 1937 and died just last year. And this is probably her best known piece. It's called Kokopelli. And Hoover writes about Kokopelli that she writes that Kokopelli, the flute player, was a great Mahu, or legendary hero of the Hopi. He is said to have led the migrations through the Southwest, the sound of his flute echoing through the great canyons and cliffs. In this piece, I have tried to capture some of this sense of spaciousness, of the Hopi's deep kinship with this land.